Hugh Freeze wants to play spring games against other teams. We're talking the guy that was kicked out of Ole Miss for calling hookers on his work cell phone. Goes to Liberty, plays his way back into Auburn. Wade, what's your thoughts on playing your spring game? Not necessarily against another SEC team, if say LSU, but you'd go play La
Alabama
Tech
State.
or Nicholls State, something like that.
Exactly. I think that's where this idea has the best potential, is with these in-state matchups that you're referring to. I think we all know with college football expanding at a rapid pace, and now them adding to each conference, adding a conference game, eventually it's going to pick away at the non marquee matchups, in the out of conference schedule, the matchups that bring in the least money. And that's those ones against smaller FCS opponents. In fact, the schools are cutting a check to those other teams to come play. So I think to keep those games from disappearing entirely, you just move them to the spring, so the FCS program would still get their money. They could come play the spring game. I get there is a risk for injury, but it's going to be for the non-contact stuff. How often have we seen a player get injured in an FCS game on a contact play? I mean, that is
true.
The physicality is not there for it to happen. If they're going to tear an ACL, it could very well happen against their own team. So I think that's a good way to keep the fundraising going for some of the smaller schools. You could probably even charge for tickets if you wanted to, and it would be a good way to really boost the spring. And maybe you invite 2 schools to come up, and you don't play all the schools, but you have a second game featuring other schools, kind of make it like a jamboree or something. So I think that idea could be great. I'm all for it if it gets us better college football on the schedule in the fall.
I like the playing of the FCS school. I think you would still have to treat it like a true spring game. Very controlled environment to try to limit injuries as best as possible. Probably shorten it to maybe just a half. But it gives your guys a different look, because you got like the Florida spring game. They're 7-7 going into the fourth. Does that mean they have a terrible offense or good defense?
Or are they just not showing anything?
You got Lane Kiffin weighing in on that on Twitter. Of course, Lane runs his own Twitter account. I think that's by no surprise. But as spring game at this point, it's just like a good practice. Doesn't really mean anything. But I think it would add a new meaning to it if you played a local school and kind of gave those guys some reps. Tyler, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like spring games in general, the fans don't really care about. They go there for half, then they drive their way on home. I mean, it's just like boring to watch, like both in person. It's just like another practice. I think that it would be good. You don't really have to be like, oh, you have to pay $20 to watch. FCS Midwest go up against Alabama in the spring game. You could just keep the spring games free, leave it open to the public. Treat it like a normal spring game if you want to have like certain points. I know that, Tennessee's, their spring games like 276 to 250 are the point systems that do. So if you want to do something like that, so I'm for it. But I don't know. I feel like it's probably not going to change. It's just going to go to normal spring games. If you just want to like have like an extra, warm up for in the fall before week 1, and just put everybody on week 0 and play cupcakes, and that way you're prepared for whoever you're playing, especially the powerhouses.
You could do a fall exhibition game and a spring exhibition game to kind of get people warmed up, but the stats wouldn't count.
That's what baseball does.
Yeah, I think in basketball it is a fall exhibition game. So I think that's probably the future of what you're going to see, because FCS football needs that relationship with FBS football for the money aspect. But for a competitive standpoint, teams are going to need to get, all Power 5 schedule, or at the very least, playing a team like Louisiana Lafayette or Tulane for LSU, not playing Nicholls or Northwestern State, Southeastern, one of those games.
Right. Yeah, definitely agree with you.